sleep expecting miracles until they're commonplace. Magic is the physics in this universe of grace.
Optimism is only authentic and sustainable if it includes an understanding of reality and doesn't ignore that forest death is accelerating all over the world, that 1 in 3 children are abused, that innocent people are being sent to prison like every day. Like, the optimism has to include all that, otherwise it'll be just kind of like cheerful but unconvincing and actually counterproductive. As our understanding of reality expands, we go through these cycles of grief followed by greater and greater, I'm not sure if optimism is the right word, but maybe greater and greater joy and power and ability to hold a story in which a more beautiful world is possible. If you're in the phase of grief, that's important to feel that. It's what makes your optimism solid. There's a lot to cry about. And if we ignore it, it just will come back again and again and again. And our society doesn't give us much room for that. Even if you have a loved one die, you're supposed to be back on your feet in 2 weeks, you know? We don't have the room for the grief. Yeah, I guess we need community, really, which is the most important thing missing in our society. We need community even to feel grief effectively. We need community to understand our creative power and, to, like I said before, to stay in that, in whatever story you're in which things are okay and possible and there's solutions. You shouldn't have to hold that yourself. Like, I can't hold it myself. Like, right now, I'm standing in the field of the possibility of a more beautiful world. Like, I see it, and I have experiences that remind me again and again and again. But then sometimes, like, I get overwhelmed with the pain of this planet, the enormity of the forces arrayed against change, and I can't see it at that moment. And just at that moment when I'm about to be completely lost, I'll receive something that tells me, actually, it is true. You weren't deluded. Something, maybe just a really beautiful person, you know? Or maybe one of these kind of miraculous events, some kind of expression of gratitude, you know? Something like will come to me that will enable me to continue holding it. So we need each other. I think stories like this are important because they communicate to us, again, that reality is bigger than what we thought. But we don't have to accept that message. We can discard those and keep our old stories. We say, you know, it wasn't really a gallbladder attack, you know, and he was just kind of imagining things, and now he's concocting this story because he's in a group like this and he wants to feel special. That wasn't really his wife. Actually, he's just dealing with all this loneliness, you know, and finally he had some kind of mental breakdown. Now he's writing these spiritual teachings which comfort him and give him the psychological comfort because sometimes I've invited story after story and debunked every single one of them. And what becomes apparent is that no amount of evidence will convince me. Therefore, my supposedly rational worldview is not actually based on evidence. This is not some disembodied intellectual belief. There's an emotional component to what I'm believing. And it's a whole state of being. You can feel the difference between these two interpretations. One of them is kind of contemptuous and disparaging. I was being a bit dramatic, but I could do it in a way that wasn't contemptuous, but merely patronizing. Like, so an empathic listening post. Like, ooh, you know, empathy and empath, you know, are you an empath? Like there's this kind of maybe even self-disparagement where there's a little pain that comes up. There's a pain that comes up every time we're faced with something really, really beautiful. There's a little cynicism, at least in me. Like, I see someone being really generous and I'm like, well, they're just, you know, showing off. Or someone who's apparently doing really good work and like, okay, where's the money? The cynicism comes from a wound. Anything that tells us that there is beautiful intelligence in this universe, it triggers a hurt because we've had that knowledge before and it's been betrayed and crushed. We have this belief, this knowledge that the world is supposed to be much more beautiful than what's been offered to us as normal. And it's been betrayed so many times. And when something like this story comes up and arouses it again, we will retreat into disbelief and cynicism, thinking then that that's being practical and realistic. Actually, it's the opposite, because the cynical person doesn't try the impossible. Only the naive person tries what's impossible and sometimes succeeds. And we need a lot of the impossible today. But it's not really impossible. It's just impossible from an old story. I've got a friend, he was a real estate guru, so successful at it. He had big seminars, and he was leading one of these seminars, 170 people in the room. It was day 3 of a 5-day seminar, and by his own account, it was a mighty dull seminar. People were taking notes, he was delivering the material, but at some point he's like, this isn't what I want to be doing. So he had been an assistant to Tony Robbins, and so he kind of channeled this Tony Robbins exercise. Said, okay, everybody, put down your pens, take out your wallets, take out your purses, grab some money, fistful of money, crumple it up in your hand. I'm going to count to 3, and when I count to 3, I'm going to tell you to do something, and you're going to do it without even thinking about it, and you're going to scream as you do it. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Throw that money up into the air. So everybody screams and throws the money up into the air, and it lands on the ground. The ground is littered with money now. Says, okay, you want to come here to get rich, right? To be the master of money. Well, if you're the master of money, you'll leave that on the floor. If money is the master of you, you won't feel secure in leaving it on the floor. You'll have to go pick it up. So everybody leaves it on the floor. And the seminar continues, and he's bringing in new things, and it's just electrifying. 5 o'clock comes along, and it's time for everybody to go back to their hotel rooms, and they're like, do we pick up the money now? The exercise is over, and he says, no, if you pick it up now, it shows that money is the master of you. We're going to leave this here as a gift to the janitors. Well, one guy scowls, and he grabs his money and walks out. But everybody else leaves the money on the floor. They file out. Chris is there by himself on the podium, gathering his notes and stuff. And the janitorial crew comes in, 5 janitors. And they are like, stop. Dumbfounded. What are they going to do? Of course, you ask the white guy in the suit. So they go up and they ask Chris, Senor, he doesn't speak Spanish. He's trying to explain to them, oh yeah, this money's for you. Here, here, money for you. And they're like, whoa, what's going on here? So they go get their supervisor. Chris explains to the supervisor, yeah, this is for the janitors. The supervisor begins weeping. He says, do you understand what a miracle it is for these people? They've never seen this much money. This is more than their monthly salary. He's overcome. He says, I don't know what you've been doing in this room, but you're welcome back to our hotel anytime. And after that, everything's magic. People are going to restaurants, paying for other tables and paying for the whole restaurant, and in this incredible, vibrant state of generosity and confidence and faith. And the power of this, it's not because those janitors can pay the rent now. It's because something impossible happened. And when those things happen, it shows you that the world isn't what you thought it was. And this is a power that we all have. We can all give people experiences that violate their law of social reality and that say, life isn't a competition of each against all. Because this new story that we're entering is not a place that we can inhabit on our own. I could tell you, open your heart, open your mind, get interbeing, get that we're not separate. But you cannot achieve this through an act of will. If you could, then you could take credit for it, couldn't you? And separation creeps back in because you did it and someone else didn't. You made the effort and someone else didn't. Or even you surrendered and someone else different. We're hungry for something to do, but this is not that kind of transformation. It's something that happens to us. It comes as a gift, and it's a gift that we can receive and that we can give, but that we cannot force and that we cannot accomplish. So we can hold each other in this new story. We can approach people like the librarian did to that gunman and say, I know who you are, and that's why I'm not afraid of you. It's actually an insult to be afraid of somebody. And when we look at someone and say, I know who you are, a divine being, then it's an offering and it's an invitation. And I think that we're not going to have any real change in the world without a shift of consciousness on that level, because all of our institutions are built on separation. I talk about money sometimes. I wrote a book about money, Sacred Economics, and it describes how money embodies separation. I hope everybody, leaves tonight with a knowledge that you are one of the carriers and holders of a new story of the people. So you'll be able to remind people, maybe not explicitly, but maybe with who you are and your actions, you'll be able to remind people, you're not crazy for acting insanely, spending 15 years taking care of an invalid, doing listening posts. You're not crazy for doing these things that we cannot understand how they change the world, but we know that they will. We need help.
Keep expecting miracles until they're commonplace. Magic is the basic sin, universe of grace.